Hey, good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, here once again. And I will, let me adjust the brim. I will continue to be here as long as they have electricity and a signal. I will continue to be here broadcasting to you Tuesday through Thursday, right here on this channel, and Friday over on the 11th House with the Friday Forecast, and of course, Sunday Night Astro Live, where we dive into the wonderfully predictive and useful world of astrology. So, yesterday was a big day. Let's just cut right to the chase. It was a very big day. I have a lot of thoughts on it. And some of them are a rewind and a repeat from some of the things I was talking about yesterday, but we're getting even clearer pictures now as to what's going on here. Just waiting for people to show up. Hey, let's see. We have, oh, look who's here. Look who's here. Okay, he's right here. He was here. Where are you going, man? Where are you going? Right there. There's the Astro Cat. He was here right from the beginning today. He was like right on top of the scene. Jasper is also incredibly committed to this process. He's going to be here pretty much every day. That's what Jasper does for wet food. He only gets I don't, I feed Jasper and Rosie very standard food, by the way. I don't feed them really fancy food, and they love it. And you know what? They've never been sick. So it's working. What can I say? Let's check in with Chatlandia. Let's see what we've got. There's Lisa Dawn. Hi there. There's Mr. Maury. Lots happened since yesterday. Yep, sure have. We're going to get into it. There's Sue. Hi, Sue. And there's Jennifer. What's going on, Jennifer? Good to see you. Let's see who else we have. There's Natasha. Hi, Natasha. There's Uncle Glenn, my man, Uncle Glenn. There's Steve. Steve's in the house. Christine. Hi, Christine. And Astrofly in Dubai making an appearance today. Let's see who else we have. Hey, Tina. Good morning. I'll be talking to you later today, Tina. And the Crimmies are in the house. Tamara. Hi, Tamara. Sandra. We got an all-star crew in. Where's Ani? Is Ani coming in today? Let's see who else. Somebody else. Let's see. Hey, cuz, what's up, Sandra? Good to see you. My man, DJ MC is in the house. There's Judy. Hi, Judy. Good to see you. Kathy Werner, Lisa Marie, rocking. There's a fire in Chatlandia. It's the flames. Jimmy James and the Famous Flames. That was wasn't that the group that Jimi Hendrix was in, the Famous Flames? Well, where do I begin? Last night I did a show with Emily, and it's over on the Off Planet channel. We did a Matrix mash. Oh, flights from Austin as low as $44. How about that? Anybody traveling? I had to cancel my event in Philadelphia. That went down yesterday. I'm a little bummed about that. More than a little bummed about that, to be quite frank. I like going to Philadelphia. It's a really good opportunity for me to connect with people face to face. It's a very supportive environment on a number of different levels. And I was going to be going out there next, let's see, week after next. And that's not happening. So hopefully I can do some virtual stuff with the folks back there and give a talk and all the things that I was planning on doing, and even doing readings for people. It's really interesting because I have a client slash friend who texted me last night, and she wanted to know if I was coming out there still, because apparently there's a bunch of stuff going on. People are testing positive. The whole testing thing is a kind of an interesting phenomenon in and of itself, which we'll talk about. I think I'm going to have Jasper tested for Corona. What happens if Jasper comes back positive? I'm going to have to quarantine him, which means he won't be able to be on the show. I'll have to quarantine him. Jasper, where would you quarantine? The bathroom? I don't know. I don't think Jasper can handle that. I don't think Americans can handle being quarantined. And by the way, they're coming. The quarantines are coming. we're headed to this is the slow creep now. We're in the slow creep. And this is something that I was talking about yesterday. There's a lot to cover today. Yesterday was 3/11. Yesterday was the equivalent of 9/11, right? And in its own kind of weird manifestation, yesterday was a very big day. And there's going to be no new normal after yesterday. And again, I'm not saying that the coronavirus is the world killer. There is something to this virus. I'll tell you that right now. I was on Twitter last night, and Roosh V is very sick. He's been sick for 9 days now. I know a lot of you are familiar with Roosh V and his amazing transformation from being a borderline misogynist to becoming this very compassionate and wise person. It's very interesting his transformation and the speed at which it took place. But that's how these things work. That's how they work. It's like it's almost overnight. Anyway, he's sick and he's got the classic coronavirus symptoms without the high fever. So the whole symptomology stuff is also quite interesting as well. That there seems to be some common themes and some not so common themes, or some themes that are not shared. But he has all the symptoms that one would think would be corona-esque or corona-like. The dry cough, the hack, the headache, the lethargy. This, and it's been going on now for about 9 days. I know some people have been talking about these symptoms and having them for upwards of 2 weeks. Whatever this thing is, it's not a normal flu. This is not just like a normal flu. And I get the flu. I've got the flu. I've had bronchitis. Usually I have about, once a year, and it's usually around the holidays. I don't know why. Maybe it's the lack of UV light or whatever, but it usually happens to me about once a year. And of course, this year it happened almost like clockwork back in November. And I was sick. I was hoping to get a lot of work done. I was hanging out with my mother and doing the Thanksgiving thing and hanging out with all of her senior friends. She's got some great friends. Some of these women that she's connected with they're quite interesting. So I was just laid out. I didn't want to do anything. I just laid on the couch, and I went through a couple nights of very profuse sweats. So yeah, did I do a show back then? I think I might have done at least one, but I was pretty out of it. And I didn't really recover from that for about another 10 days. It took, and the flight, because I was there for, I think, 7. And it was about another, I think, 5 to 7 days, I think. About 2 weeks I had this thing. So there is something going around. I mean, it is not fun. You don't want to get it. So Rouge V was at a kind of a sub-conference of CPAC. And apparently there was, there were sick people at CPAC. We've got guys who were there like Ted Cruz and Matt Gaetz, and they're self-quarantining. Trump gave his presser last night. He seemed shaken. He was not the tower of confidence that we've come to see, know, and recognize. So we're in another period. We're in another phase. We've crossed this Maginot line with this whole Corona thing. And again, I'm gonna get into it and try to decipher as much as I can so we can see where we're going at a high level. Now, again, I had a conversation with my mother yesterday, to like make sure she's okay and everything. The city that she's in, which is Walnut Creek, California, has mandated that there can be no gatherings of 50 people. 50 people and less can gather together. Any more than 50, you can't do it. That means that her church has been suspended. She can't go to church. There's no church services. So what are they doing? They're doing virtual church service. That's what they're doing. Virtual church service. So she's going to go online. Emily and I talked about this yesterday. And if you haven't seen the show, it's up on Off Planet, the Off Planet side of things. And one of the things we talked about is the effect of this quote unquote virus. I would call it really now not just a physical virus, but a mind virus. Like it's living in our minds and it's creating a particular reality in our heads. And again, I think you've got to just prepare regardless of whether you think this is real or not, whether it's a flu on steroids, which it seems to be the case, right? It seems to be something very intense physically that people are coming down with, and it's not fun. It's just not your garden variety flu. Is this the Black Plague? Is this the pandemic that people have been predicting it's going to wipe out all these numbers? Again, we're going to sort this out as everything kind of moves along. But I will say now that where are we? We're probably about I'd say we're probably about a month deep into this. This is when the people were starting to come back from Wuhan, and they were coming back vis-a-vis these flights, and of course the cruise ships, and bringing people to places like San Antonio, and then we're getting people from Italy. It's about a month. Um, a month into, I guess we'll really know in about 2 weeks what this thing is going to look like on a physical level. Like we'll really know because theoretically, whatever happened in China, and that's all up for debate now. Theoretically, what happened in China, there's about a 6 week kind of timeline. So let's go back to December in China where they have the forced vaccinations. We've covered that. On an earlier show, we talked about. I read the mandate from the CCCP, uh, and that was in effect. That happened. So basically, from mid December till about the middle part of January is that 6 week period. Then, of course, there's also the Wuhan kind of market, and then there's the level 4 lab and all the other things that factor. But we were starting to see after about 6 weeks whatever escalation of this contagion, whether it was in the vaccines, whether it was in the food, whether it was 5G activated, that 6 week period began to produce um, phenomena, right? So I think we're about 1 to 2 weeks away here from being able to witness that, especially in cluster cases in places like Washington State. But if you look at Washington State, which seems to be the most condensed area of this virus, and if you go back and look at like Rouge V systems or symptoms rather, and how severe they are, and you put those in a nursing home, which is really where this thing took off in Washington State, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it kills people in a nursing home because of how severe it is. So you would think that by now there would be as many mass deaths in Washington State as there would have been maybe in week 5 in China, where people are dropping like flies and run into the emergency room. Um, it's not there. The numbers of people that might have the infection are there, but we're not seeing the same kind of morbidity and mortality rate, at least not now. So we got about a week or two to really kind of hold this up to the whole China thing. And if the numbers and the kind of the visceral information does not match what we saw in Wuhan and around Wuhan, then we know something's up. But a lot can happen in about 2 weeks, as we're witnessing right now. A lot can happen in about 2 weeks. So let's go over some of the things that did happen. Last night, the NBA canceled its season, or they put it on hold. How do I feel about that? Well, frankly, I don't really care. I do watch the NBA. It's mostly out of distraction than it is out of anything else. It's not like I have a rooting interest in the sport or the enterprise. So they canceled or they suspended their season, and there was something really weird. Like we're in a very weird kind of part of the universe now. There's no more new normal. There's no more new normal around anything. Let me show you. I'm going to show you a brief clip of the player that supposedly tested positive for coronavirus. I'm going to show you what he does. I mean, the whole thing is just so bizarre. It's so utterly bizarre. His name is Rudy Gobert, and he plays for the Utah Jazz. And the Utah Jazz were getting ready to play the Oklahoma City Thunder. And let me get this up here. And Rudy Gobert was not on the court. Players were on the court. And apparently, Rudy Gobert tests positive for coronavirus. Here's the about a 20-second clip of his press conference. Rudy Gobert is from France originally, and France plays a role in this story. Here, not with him, but kind of in the general overall theme of things. All right, here we go. Here's Rudy Gobert. He comes in. He sits down. This guy's gonna put his little. So this guy here. Let me just show you. This guy, he puts his recorder up there, right? Oh, I'm going to put my recorder up there so I can get some good quotes. They're all eggheads. All these journalists are just egghead jock sniffers. Okay, here we go. So Gobert is going to sit down. He's going to talk about stuff, and he's going to rub his arm. He's smiling. He doesn't look very sick. And then he's going to, I'm not going to touch anything. And he says, fuck it. I'm going to go back and touch everything. What's that about? I mean, and he runs out. This is a guy that tests positive. He's tested positive. And what's he doing? He's like trolling everybody. Up. Here, let me do this. Let me touch everything. And he goes running out. Do you know the outrage that has caused amongst people? And they're laughing. They think it's funny. Ha 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 ha. Play one more time. Gets up. I'm not going to touch anything. Then he gets like second thoughts. I'm going to go back and touch everything. Spread my germs around. See you later. And then he runs out. It doesn't seem like a guy that's all that sick. Maybe he's sick in the head, but it doesn't seem like he's all that sick. Well, that's patient zero for the NBA, and they've put the season on ice. They're done for now, and that's a lot of revenue. That's a lot of revenue. But the NBA is the most progressive of all the sports leagues, and they've always been very vocally against Donald Trump. The Warriors, who won the championship, would not go to the White House because they're all woke. And you got people like Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich, who are hardcore lefties by name only or name only. Like you look, it's really funny because Greg. I remember there was a time where I was like really capping on Greg Popovich, who's the coach of the San Antonio Spurs down the road. And Greg Popovich was going on and on and on about white privilege and uh, that he was just insufferable. And he was also going after Trump. And this was let's see, this was last year. It was headed into last year's season, and maybe even a bit of the year before that, maybe a bit of the year before that. And he's talking about how difficult his players have had it. Like if you knew their stories, and there's truth to that. A lot of these guys come from really shitty backgrounds and really really difficult circumstances. And a sport like basketball or football is another example. Have really helped them, their lives, their community. So Popovich is actually quite correct in his assessment because he's been around these players and these lives. He knows them inside out. There's no debate about that. But his counter argument is that because it's been so difficult for a certain group of people that we have to take stock of our own lives and then bash our own existence, which is really what I had an issue with. I had an issue with that because I think there's a different way of going about it. That you can celebrate success, you can celebrate achievement. You can say, hey, look, this is part of the great thing about being in the United States or this geographic location at this time of the world, and that you could start from very humble beginnings and have a very difficult life path, and through guidance and connections and people that are going to steward your town. Look where this gets you. Look at all the opportunity involved, from youth basketball through high school, through the AAU, up through college, into the pro ranks. There's a system that's been developed to help certain athletes who have the ability to be lifted up out of their conditions and poverty. Why doesn't he embrace that? Why doesn't he celebrate that? But he didn't. What he wants to do or chooses to do is to go after the so-called oppressors, including himself. So I remember looking at Greg Popovich's coaching roster. Well, who are his coaches? Well, at that time, I don't know what it is now, but at that time, I think he had one so-called Black or African-American coach on his coaching staff. Why is that? I mean, if you feel so strongly about, your position and how you are privileged, and as a result of that, you have to, throw some shade at who you are and where you came from and people that are like you. Why don't you just have more, so-called Black or African American coaches on your coaching staff? It's kind of hypocritical. I remember I was like, this dude's a hypocrite. He's a hypocrite. And that's not uncommon. He does have a woman on the coaching staff, and she'll probably wind up being the first female coach in the NBA, Becky Hammon. But it's so funny too. Life is so ironic because I'm getting a little sports talk, but it's more than sports. Greg Popovich, who was such a champion for his players and such a vigilant critic of the society that they grow up and are raised in, actually had a real difficult issue with a player by the name of Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard just turned off to Greg Popovich. You know why? Because Kawhi Leonard smelled out his game. Kawhi Leonard realized that Greg Popovich was nothing more than a hypocrite. And Kawhi Leonard wanted nothing more to do with him or the San Antonio Spurs organization, forced his way out, went to Toronto, and they won a world championship. Isn't it ironic that that happens on Greg Popovich's watch, as he might have even been kind of working out his frustrations in some ways against Kawhi Leonard. I hadn't really thought about that. And I know it's sports oriented, but it's like kind of life in a nutshell. That as he railed against something that really, in a lot of ways, was coming at it from the wrong angle. This thing comes up in his own backyard that he cannot control and cannot criticize and cannot manage, and it bites him in the ass. Anyway, the NBA is and has been the model and vehicle for wokeism. It doesn't surprise me that they've canceled the season. Doesn't surprise me at all. Now they're going to lose out on revenue, but the owners are stinking rich. They don't care. I mean, I'm sure they care in the sense that they'd love to have more money, but is it going to force them to get a part-time job? No. The players get paid weekly. They get checks or direct deposits on a weekly basis. They're about 3/4 of the way through their season, so they've received 3/4 of their pay, and the pay scale in the NBA is quite high. So they're taken care of. They're done for now. No, nobody's going to, unless you're like a guy who's on a 10-day contract or something like that. That could get a little sketchy if you don't have any money coming in, and your parent club is not going to take advantage of, not going to care for you or pay for you. That could be a little sketchy, but they're done now. And the thing that this sends is it's a major message for people, because the NBA is something that shows up with regularity. People watch it. Now it's not happening. It's not happening. That's going to send a message to people's brains. And it's another, I believe, broadside against what we've been experiencing for the last 3 years with Donald Trump. Is the NBA in on this thing? Are they helping to promote an agenda? Well, based on everything I've seen with the NBA and the ownership and the players and people like LeBron James and coaches like Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr and a number of other players, I would say the answer is unequivocally yes. They could absolutely be in on this thing. Why not? Why wouldn't they be? They've got strong ties with China and have had some very strong ties with China. One of the things that people don't talk about is that the Brooklyn Nets are owned by the guy who started Alibaba, right? So we've got major Chinese ownership inside of the NBA, which hasn't really been discussed at all. The Nets used to be owned by a Russian. I mean, was it Prokhorov or Pokarov? Kind of an impressive guy on some level. But he sold it to the guy who owned Alibaba. So I would not be surprised at all if the NBA is part of this larger mechanism to flip what I call the thermonuclear kill switch, which we talked about yesterday. It's on. Like, it is on now. What else? It looks like the National Hockey League is going to suspend play. That's going to happen more than likely. I was watching ESPN, and the NC2As for now are going to take place in front of empty auditoriums, empty stadiums. I think they're getting 100 tickets to sell. So that it's kind of like going back to the youth basketball period where 100, 150 people show up to a game. Isn't that interesting? True amateurism. But I don't think the NC2As are going to happen. I think they're going to have too much pressure. The NBA has set a precedent, and that's done. I think they're going to suspend them. I was talking with somebody who's an administrator for an alumni association yesterday up at the University of Michigan, and she just got out of a meeting, and they've basically suspended all classes. We've seen this at other places. The Big Ten suspended all classes. I'd be very surprised if kids come back from spring break in schools across the country. So this is a real dilemma for a lot of parents, because a lot of parents do not have childcare set up. The school is the de facto childcare. So what happened? Now maybe the parents get to stay home and they get to telecommute. And guess what? We're you know one happy family, me, mom, and daddy. But some people might actually travel for work. They may still be commuting for work. So I think that the schools are probably going to be shut down and closed. So now all of a sudden, right, the slow creep begins. And we talked about this yesterday. If you've been following this these series of broadcasts and streams, we've been pretty close to being right on in terms of projections along the way. And I've even been talking about the lack of an election this year, and that's now starting to come more into focus. We might actually wind up having virtual elections, which people are pushing for now. I'm not sure how I feel about that. How are you going to ensure that somebody is who they say they are? I'll tell you how. Biometric scans, retinal scans. So this is the slow creep is happening, and whether or not you believe this thing is as killer of a virus as it showed up to be in China, or what they theoretically released in um, Italy, that's a whole nother story. And at some point, it really doesn't matter. What matters is the perception. What matters is the emotion. What matters is the fear that is created and driven, and what people will be willing to accept. And we know where this is going. This is going to go into the realm of forced vaccinations. That's coming. If they keep banging this drum and beating this drum, the forced vaccination thing was going to move right to the forefront. And the timeline I'm getting is about 3 months, because apparently Israel has uh, made the breakthrough discovery, and we'll have a vaccine ready in 3 months. Well, how do you treat it? How do you know the coronavirus vaccine actually works? What kind of trials are you doing? Well, they don't really do trials anyway with vaccines. They really don't. So does it really matter at this point? And you got Bill Gates getting ready to sell all these test kits, and you know, this is ridiculous. But this is where we're headed. This is the slow creep. And this is going to be a very interesting period of time now as this thing evolves and de-evolves. And the pressure, the social pressure is going to be something to keep an eye out on. And I'll tell you right now, I've been talking about being prepared. I've been talking about being prepared for a while. You need to have at least 1 month's worth of food and water on hand, regardless. But I'll tell you right now, as of today, based on what happened yesterday with the NBA, Trump's speech, and of course, the travel ban from Europe. And there are people right now that are paying up to $20,000 for a flight to get back to the U.S. before Friday. That's happening right now. Okay, so you add all that up, and let's sprinkle a little Tom Hanks on top of everything. Where is Tom Hanks? Oh, he just happens to be in Australia, and tweeted that he has coronavirus. His son, Chet, has a Twitter account, and I watched his Twitter account. His son is way tatted up, huge, and he has the all-seeing eye right on the center of his chest. Should I show you a picture of Tom Cruise's, or not Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks's kid? Let's see. We do this. The not just the kid, but his tats. Let's see what do you have here. May as well just show you the video. Oh, this stuff cracks me up, man. Deeply ironic stuff. So let's see what CNN got. Oh, it's so funny. They've Chet Hanks on parents' diagnosis. They're not even that sick. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can find this guy's. I don't give a shit about UCNN. When was he born? August 4th. So he's a Leo. And he went to Northwestern University, of course, Chicago. Let me see if I can find the image. There we go. I don't know what he does. Is he a rapper or something? Is that his thing? Oh, here we go. Here's a. He's got an Illuminati body. Here he is. So this is Tom Hanks's kid. He's got the sleeves going on and the all-seeing eye right on his heart and solar plexus. Look at that right there. And when he was doing his Twitter video yesterday, this is how I found out that he's got this tapestry of ink on his body. This is the messenger right here. This is the messenger. I guess this is coming from Lionel. And I guess he's a work in progress, right? Because this was before he got to the all-seeing eye part. He looks high as fuck there, doesn't he? Look at that. High as fuck. This is your Corona messenger. Basically telling us that his mom and dad are okay, but they have the coronavirus. And what does that do? Oh, well, your average American says, oh, Tom Hanks has the coronavirus. He has the coronavirus. Tom Hanks is Mr. Rogers. He's got the coronavirus. More panic, more fear. Of course, he's in Australia. And, pretty easy to ride it out or bug out in Australia. But this is what we get now. We get the direct sort of transmission, not from Tom Hanks, but his son with the all-seeing eye planted squarely right in his solar plexus and looking right back at you and me. Mistakes? I don't know. It's interesting on some level. Telling, perhaps even more. So people now, you add it up, you got the NC2As on the verge of being canceled and suspended. That's a huge, huge, huge moneymaker. And all these teams, by the way, you may say, oh, well, the NBA, whatever, not a big deal. Who cares? There are people that work at those venues and they need those jobs. Everything from the ticket takers to the security people to the guys with the flashlights who park your car or tell you to go a certain way, to the people that are selling, $20 nachos and $30 beers. I mean, they have jobs. These are their jobs. This is how they get paid. Do you think that that the NBA owners are going to pay for these people's salaries while they're out of work? Do you think the league is going to set aside some emergency money for these people? The players are fine. Most of them, I'd say 85% of the players, 90% of the players, they're fine. They don't have anything to worry about. But it's all these other people that have the issues. And what about the goods that get shipped to these stadiums? And they sell a lot of shit. They're not going there. They're not going there. The people who are driving the trucks to unload that stuff, they're not going there. Right. So all this has a ripple effect. And that's starting to show up in the economy now. The markets are tanking, and they have these circuit breakers, and they've been activated so that shit stops. It just stops at a certain point. And how is this going to affect people? How's it going to affect them? You're going to start to see people panic. Like the panic is on. The mind virus is going to start to take place, and we talked about Andrew Cuomo and deploying the National Guard in that 1 square mile radius of New Rochelle. Oh, by the way, I was informed that Phyllis did have a daughter. So I was unsure whether she actually had a daughter. Didn't see the daughter very much. So Phyllis, aka Cloris Leachman, apparently did have a daughter, and I was also informed that Murray's daughter on Mary Tyler Moore was on the show every now and then, and it was Helen Hunt who played Murray's daughter. I didn't even know Murray had a daughter. That's how unmemorable Helen Hunt's role as Murray's daughter. So I was unsure about Cloris Leachman, right? She did have a daughter. She also supposedly had a husband named Lars. You never saw him. He wasn't even on the show. The missing husband. Anyway, so we're going to see people now begin to uh, start to feel the pressure because there's pressure. We are living in a pressurized environment. Just think of all the Capricorn that we're dealing with. We're dealing with Saturn in Capricorn and Pluto in Capricorn. Saturn's about ready to go into Aquarius. And that's a whole other phenomenon in and of itself, right? Because Aquarius is groups of people. Aquarius are large gatherings like people in a baseball stadium or people in a basketball stadium or auditorium or arena. It's people at political rallies. It's people at concerts. Concert tours are being canceled. So Saturn now, we're seeing Saturn. Just remember, astrologically, we get to see what's happening at the end of a sign, right? So when we see the end of Saturn in Capricorn, we're beginning to see the incoming data from the next transit. So Saturn in Aquarius is already communicating to us. And it's about limiting, which is what Saturn does, group activity and group events. Conversely, people are telecommuting. They've got all the educational tools lined up so that your kid can study at home, go to school at home, do all those things at home. Aquarius represents the internet. It represents virtual reality. It represents social media. And now Saturn is coming in and saying, we're going to put you in a box. Here's the box. That's what Saturn does. Creates, that's not the box. That's that, right? So we're going to put a box on people in live events. Sorry, limitation. That's what Saturn does. Now we're going to put you inside of this box. And here's the frame set. You got a 15-inch frame set for your life. That's the box you're in now. Because out there you can't do that anymore. And this is coming. It's fresh. And wait till Mars conjunct Saturn. What's that going to be like? Is that going to be some kind of enforcement, some martial enforcement of the restriction around Saturn in public events and public gatherings? We're in uncharted territory now. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how people respond to this. I'd say about 70 to 75% of the people follow orders, don't really think for themselves, cede their opinions or perceptions to authority, for better or worse. Sometimes maybe it's okay. I don't know. If you are going 100 miles an hour down Main Street in Fredericksburg, you're going to get pulled over and you're going to have to deal with authority, right? You could pull out all your sovereign paperwork and your sovereign nomenclature, if that's what you want to do, to ultimately be your own authority, which is probably something that if we all had the ability to do that and tap into it all simultaneously, we might be able to change things overnight. It's a lot of work, but it could happen. Or you can cede to authority and drive through the center of town under the speed limit and not get pulled over, right? That's a basic fundamental level of that. I'd say 70, 75% of the people are in that group. And then 25 to 30% of the people are not into authority. They're not into being told what to do. They don't, they want to make up their own minds. And we're going to see how this gets played out in the not so distant future. We got Friday the 13th. That's happening tomorrow. Certainly feeling and looking very much like a Black Friday, particularly financially. And then what is Trump going to do? This is the big question now. What is Trump going to do? What can he do? He's got to somehow appease his critics. But I've been saying this for a while that if we're going to get into this Q territory, and I was talking with Emily about this last night, you can see it on our show. But if we're going to get into this Q territory, this is really where the rubber's going to hit the road. We're going to find out just how real Q supposedly is, because this is where potentially extreme measures can take place. Well, again, we'll see. We'll see. But if this is a coup, and it certainly feels like a coup, it does feel like a coup. This is the thermonuclear coup. And China very much is, I could be in cahoots with the left. Why not? This is the type of government the left loves. They love the Chinese model, their version of Chinese democracy. And are they working hand in glove? Is this the globalists actually putting their thermonuclear kill switch and flipping it on? This is what we're seeing? I'd say unequivocally the answer is yes. Because the ultimate kind of goal here is to take out Donald Trump. They don't want him to get to the election. They're going to do everything in their power to keep him from getting to the election. And we haven't even gotten to June when the Supreme Court rules on his tax records. And the left is waiting, bated breath. And Venus is going to go retrograde in Gemini during that time. And I would not be surprised if the Supreme Court rules against Trump. I would not be surprised based on that. And that's a whole other kettle of stinky fish. So what is Trump going to do? What is the Trump administration going to do? In my estimation, and I've talked about this, if this is what's happening and things are moving in that direction, and we're going to get into a martial law creep scenario anyway, then probably what I would do is I would just call martial law. I'd just call martial law. I'd shut everything down. I would take over the banks. At that point, I'd nationalize the banks, which would be a Bernie Sanders move, by the way. And the Bernie Sanders people would love it. I'd nationalize the banks. And of course, Trump's handlers and the people that control Trump's assets would not like that very much. But that's what I'd do. And then whatever plan he's got to unplug from the Fed, I would put it in immediately. And I'd get out of the funny money fiat game. That's what I do. And that in and of itself right there would be a major game changer. Major game changer. And then we would have a different version of the reset. But it remains to be seen. We could be at a stasis point for the next few weeks, but it does feel like these things are accelerating now, and that we're into the slow creep. So if we look at it from a global level, global travel truncated, cut off, diminished. Next would be domestic travel. Keep your eye on, and by the way, if you want to get a flight somewhere, it's super cheap right now. So there's your domestic flights. That's the next level. You want to keep an eye on that. And then after that, what do we have? Public transit. Okay, keep your eye on public transit. Then after that, it will be personal travel and traveling interstate via car, traveling in your state via car, traveling in your county, in your city via car. So these are the next things that we're looking at as far as the slow creep goes. So when we begin to hear the rumble about domestic travel, then we know that we're getting to the next level on this. And I will also say that whether or not you want to have a full-blown kind of prepper's dream, you should probably get to the store and get a few things. Because after yesterday, the stampede of the herd will be on. I guarantee that. I've been going to HEB, and I haven't been crazy about getting things. But I do have a few things. Like if we went offline, I could do okay for a month easily, not a problem. a month. But there are certain things I've been watching at HEB, and one of the things I have my eye on, it's I know it sounds really obscure, but canned sweet potatoes. Because, if things go funky and weird, would you want to have some nice sweet potatoes? And they have canned sweet potatoes. They have big cans and they have little cans. So I was just watching. I'd go past, the canned food aisle. I'd go walk and I said, oh, how are the canned sweet potatoes doing? It's like, okay, full case, full case, full case. Yesterday, there were 4 canned sweet potatoes left. So to me, it's like, well, it's not a holiday because people usually eat sweet potatoes during a holiday. Uh, we've reached a level now where people are starting to target not just things like toilet paper, not just things like water or wipes, or that those sorts of basic fundamental things. When it got down to this canned sweet potato level, it's like, okay, we're reaching a new point here. It's the canned sweet potato effect. That to me was like my canary in the coal mine. It was like, boom, there it is. So if you haven't gotten a few things for what you need, whatever they are, I'd probably do it sooner rather than later. Let's just put it that way. Because I also think that we might be staring down the forced 14-day quarantines. I think those are probably coming. And again, I want to preface all of this by saying that whatever this coronavirus is, well, it's real. It's a real virus. It's a real thing that people are getting sick from. And just, do you think Rouge V would lie about it? I mean, this guy has become so painfully honest and so painfully virtuous that I just don't think that that's what he would do. And he's not the only one. People have been reporting these symptoms, and they are very painful and very uncomfortable and very unpleasant. So we're dealing with something. Does it warrant the amount of overreach that we're currently seeing? That's a question for you to decide. In my estimation, the answer would be no, it doesn't. But at the same time, it's going to take on a life of its own, and thus perception becomes reality. And that's kind of where we are right now. We're watching this manifestation of perception coalesce into a so-called reality. Just take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. And here's another really interesting, like there's certain things we can't change, right? Like if you're going to go to Europe, you better, and you're going to be there next week, you better plan on staying there for 30 days. You can't change that. You can't change that. You can't go onto NBA TV and access your subscription that you paid for because those guys aren't playing. You can't change that. There are certain things we can't change, at least not at that level. But there are other things that we can change. And this is how we theoretically hack this evolving model of the matrix. And that you have a certain reality or a certain kind of holographic intent inside of yourself, which defines who you are apart from the events or the phenomenon of the theater. That's really important. That's very, very important because that's a different kind of immunity. It's a different kind of immunity. Yeah, you want to stay clean and all that. Sure, I wash my hands and I make sure I don't touch a bunch of people. But there's a different kind of immunity, which means connecting with people, talking with people. I talked about this yesterday. Lean into some of the things that keep us human and allow us to connect with other people. That's really important. And just think about the whole idea of touch and being touched and how healing that is, from having a massage therapist work in your body to embracing a wife or a husband or a lover or a partner, or hugging your kids, or hugging a good friend. We humans need this, right? And we need this. Those kinds of moments create oxytocin in our body, and oxytocin helps control cortisol levels. It calms us down. We're not in this furious fight or flight modality, and we are nothing without touch. We're just not. And this is another kind of mind virus that is limiting how we can touch each other. So um, don't lose touch with touch. Stay in touch with touch. I think it's important. I'm not sure you want to go touch a bunch of strangers, but the people that you love and people you care about, make sure that everybody knows that they're loved to the degree that they can be. It's very important. It's the antidote in a lot of ways to putting us inside the box, the virtual theater, which seems to be happening at a very rapid rate. Okay, let me check in with you guys and see where y'all are at. Let's see where we are. Okay. Come on now. Let's see. What do we have here? Touch pets. Yes. Yeah, touch your cats. What else? Bye, Trump. There goes his only talking point. What else do we have here? What's going on in my show? Live. What else? Come on. Minus 2,500. Oh, we got a Trump virus 2020. What else? Oh, this is a different show. I don't know what happened to my show. What the hell happened to my show? Where did I go? I'm still here. Huh. Interesting. Let's see. What do we have? Good reminder, Robert. Rose hips high in vitamin C. We are powerful beings. No other awake humans to lean into around here. I've been operating at a deficit for touch, on touch for 10 years. I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see what else. Board games and cards. Yes, 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 yes. Touch therapy, the ultimate separation strategy. You're right, Ani. Absolutely. Clumping kitty litter. I've been investing in clumping kitty litter. Be prepared, not scared. Fantastic. Good, good, good. It's a good strategy. Behold the pale horse. Hey, Kevin, what's going on? Nice to see you. Honey for sure. Also, salt and spices are important. Yep, 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 yep. I say be able to guard your stash for 6 months, and most people would be starved out or dead from being cut off from their pharmaceuticals. That's a thing. Absolutely. We got dry meat, dehydration. These are all really, really good ideas and tips. 1 cow provides 1,000,000 calories. Fresh sweet potatoes keep over the winter quite well. Thanks, Chris and Steve. That's true. Get your harvest fest ticks now. Yeah, right, exactly. Let's see. Canned bacon. Caned bacon. Oh, Chris caned bacon last week. We will be styling during the zombie apocalypse. Get seeds in the ground. Yeah, you should. I never bought into Q. This is what Lynn says, even though my friends did. Domestic is stopping. How can it not? Yeah, it's going to stop. That's the next level. You got to watch the levels of the creep. We're in the slow creep now. And let's see. Canned cod liver also. You guys are on it. Jennifer says, I'm officially predicting a baby boom in December 2020. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Yeah. Get messy. Let's exchange some real bodily fluids. Well, the NBA is not bouncing up against each other and sweating profusely onto one another. Let's exchange some real and vital bodily fluids. How about that? And procreate in the face of doom. What a wonderful strategy that is. Good one, Jennifer. Okay, I'm out of here for today. I'll be back tomorrow. You don't want to miss tomorrow's show with Alex Kazemi. It's going to be really, really interesting from a topical perspective. Facebook, I'm coming back. I'll be back on Facebook. Just took a break from Facebook and been diving into some other places, other sources. A lot of deep diving on Twitter, which has been interesting. But I'll be back on Facebook and populating the group over on Facebook, hanging out over there. And if you like this show and you like the updates and you like the perspectives, feel free to subscribe. It's actually a thing that could be helpful in my ability to continue to do this, by the way. And of course, I'm still doing astrological readings. There's plenty to be gained from the astrological world and insights into yourself and who you are and kind of where you are as well. And now that Mercury is direct, I'm going to be putting out my webinar schedule. I've been waiting for it to go direct. So my webinar schedule is going to be announced shortly. And if you're going to be home, why not attend some webinars? Why not get into some alternative material and they'll be astrologically based? And I'm going to have a whole group of them, have at least 6 webinars lined up, ready to go. You can buy the whole package. You can chime in for 1 or 2 or 3. And if you're a subscriber and you've subscribed at the $20 level, a month level, you get to attend 2 webinars for free. And if you're a $10 subscriber, you get to get 1 free. So, and you also get the transit reports. So that's all part of the deal. I'll be announcing the webinar schedule shortly. If you have signed up for my newsletter, I'll be putting that out in the email list, and you'll be able to read about that there as well. And I think that's about it for today. Just, do your best to stay sane. Just stay sane. Do everything in your power to, keep your molecular structure intact. When people panic, there's no good decisions that are made. And I've seen this in my own life as well. Trust me on that. All right. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Have yourself a really great day. And I'll be back tomorrow, Friday the 13th, with Alex Kazemi. Take care.